Hey, everybody. It's time to listen to stories about people who talk in maths, who buzz like a fridge, who are like a detuned radio. Let's sick the police on these stories. What's your best karma story? Story 1. Not sure if it counts as karma, but here's my story. One of my favorite bullies spent his time making my life as miserable as possible until one day I decided that enough was enough. One of our teachers had quite a temper, and we had our first class in the morning. That guy tried to bully me as usual, but I managed to get him enraged just with a sharp tongue. Evidently, in front of a teacher, he would never do anything wrong, but he was enraged enough to bite a head off and didn't particularly care about class. When the teacher approached him for I don't remember what, he made the mistake of his life by answering with something on the line of, "As far as I care, you can expire." He got expelled for a week. He didn't seem to give two toots about it. Next time we saw him was 2 months later. His parents had decided that if he couldn't behave in school, it was time for him to earn his own money and put him to work at a warehouse. The guy was so broken that I almost felt pity for him. Almost. But I couldn't avoid a smile. This story isn't karma, but it's still one that made me smile. One of the subjects we had at high school was typewriting. My cousin always asked me for a paper at the beginning of each class, and sometimes he asked again in middle class, until one day the teacher noticed that pattern and talked with both of us. Her words to my cousin were quite easy to understand. "Until you buy a blank sheet pack from your cousin, you won't enter my class." My cousin didn't seem to care because he was a complete moron. We had a test the next week. When we were entering, the teacher stopped us and asked if he had bought me the blank sheet pack. He said no, and she refused him to enter the classroom. He got a 0 on the test. The next day, he gave me the pack. On the next class, he asked me for a few sheets of paper. The teacher heard it and made it clear that if he ever asked me again, he would wish he hadn't. A shame he took it seriously this time. I wanted to know what punishment she would give him. Given that she was the wife of the vice principal, I assume it would be harsh. I believe I deserve to end with a karma against me story. When I saw a teacher had downgraded me, seriously downgraded, as in Severus Snape grading Harry Potter, I let out a "son of a" just when said teacher was walking behind me. He just asked me, "Son of a what?" Exactly. I got what I deserved, and I don't mean the grade I deserved, and I was fine with it. We've all related to these stories. We've all had bullies and people that have tried to mooch off of us that we wish would get what was coming to them. It's what makes these stories so cathartic. Have you ever had any bullies that really got comeuppance? Story 2. This isn't exactly karma, but I thought it's a funny story to tell, so why not? So, I like cooking, and I decided to challenge myself to cook eggs really fast. I wanted to cook 5 eggs at once to share with my family, so I got everything ready. Then, when I touched the egg box, I turned on the stove and started the timer. I was taking out the egg container and thought, well, this is awful light. There was 1 egg in it. I put it on the counter and reached for the next box. It felt really light too, but not as light as the first box. I started praying while I was taking it out that there were more than 3 eggs or 4 eggs. Because I was cooking 5 eggs and 1 egg, the one I had already gotten out, and 3 eggs equals 4 eggs, not 5. Sure enough, there were 3 eggs. I looked at the fridge for the last box of eggs, and it was full of eggs. I didn't even take it out of the fridge. I just opened it in the fridge and got 1 egg. Then I started cracking them into a bowl to put them into a pan. The bowl was necessary so I didn't get eggshell in the pan. It was a small bowl. 5 eggs. First one? Perfect crack, and open it perfectly with no eggshell in the bowl. This would go smoothly, right? Second egg, I got eggshell in the bowl, and half the wet inside the uncooked egg flew onto my arm and shirt. The next 3, I got eggshell into the bowl. It was a terrible crack, or both. Then I put them into the pan with the oven/stove. I always forget the difference somehow. Preheated to the perfect temperature. It took like 10 minutes before they even started to become solid. Fast forward to when I was putting the eggs on the plate, and I accidentally dumped all the eggs on top of my fork. I don't know where the karma is in this. It kind of sounds like it was the other person's fault for just leaving 1 or 2 eggs in the other cartons. Sounds like it was just something someone left for this person. If it was really karma, it would have been visited on the people who just didn't consolidate the eggs. It just sounds like some sort of egg wizard really had it in for this person, just for no reason but to be chaotic. Like a big, chaotic egg wizard. The chaotic egg wizard curses your breakfast. Story 3. A friend tells this story from the few months she subbed as another friend's high school history teacher. One boy told his mom over the phone he was gay, and if she didn't want him, his boyfriend and my friend would be more than happy to take him and give him all the love and attention she neglected to. She showed up at the school to scream at my friend and tell her, "My husband is a Marine. You will do as I say." Friend just stared blankly at her and said, "Go for it, sweetie. Call your Marine husband. I, too, am a Marine. Battle-hardened and decorated. Nothing you say or do will scare me." The mom is silenced for a second, then pulls out her phone and proceeds to scream at some poor guy on the other end. When he turns up, lo and behold, he knows my friend, as he served under her husband and his older brother had served under him in Vietnam. He was real quick to apologize for his wife and drag her out of the room. If I remember right, because of the wife's actions, she lost custody of her son and his younger sister. Ah, sweet karma. It's a real shrew, ain't it, Karen? I saw a girl making a left-hand turn while doing her eyeliner, changing her shirt, and texting. She made the turn in front of me, and as she was not paying attention at all, went right into the butt end of a state trooper. I couldn't stop laughing at her stupidity. I think that first part of that crazy woman was going into the territory of those women who believe that they have the same rank as whatever their husband has when they serve in the armed forces, which I don't know why they think they deserve that. There is treating your friends' spouses with respect, and then there's this person who acts like they deserve what they don't have. The epitome of unearned entitlement. The ones that insist soldiers salute them as they have the same rank. No, lady, you don't. Story 4. I still smile when I think about the moment karma came in strong. So it's the end of grade 8, the last week, I believe, and this girl had been bullying and manipulating me since the start of grade 7. I can really only remember a few instances of that year in 10 months because I suppressed those memories so much that I lost them. For one instance, I had accidentally scratched a classmate with my nails, which used to be really long, and she played it up like I had just attempted to end him, acting all scared one minute and then laughing in my face, saying he needed to go to the hospital to get stitches, etc. She would also manipulate me into giving her the food she wanted out of my lunch and my pizza on pizza day. Anyways, I was on my way home one day, and my busmate asked if I knew why she wasn't at school. I said no, and she went on to explain that the night before, she and a friend went on Instagram live, drunk, and weren't wearing any clothes. Now, I didn't have social media until high school, but seeing as I didn't see her for the last week, which is when you want to be at school because of the games and stuff, and that she ended up going to the Catholic school instead of the public school like she had been intending to all year, leads me to believe that my friend wasn't lying. Plus, that girl was just nice overall and never said a bad thing about anyone. Story 5. Okay, so this seems like the perfect video to say this in, but my best karma as a shrew story is in early high school, sophomore year. I was with this boy, let's call him Apple. But anyways, Apple and me have been together for 6 to 7 months, and we were going strong, except for 2 small arguments over this one girl. She had said she had a crush on him, who he had always gotten too close and handsy with, and instead of attacking her, I would fuss at him. But anyways, he ended up cheating on me with her, and I broke up with him soon after I found out. Fast forward 2 weeks after we broke up, and rumors are spreading around the school of a vid of her getting smashed in one of the smaller classrooms on the 4th floor by him and a friend. Now, his friends were the garden tools of the school, but they always rubbed it in my face that he had replaced me with the new girl. It finally made me laugh when he was dragged out of the school building by the girl's brothers to get beat up for him exploiting her and physically violating her, and the following day by the cops to get charges pressed against him by the same girl his friends flaunted in my face. He is now single and outcasted, and that girl was removed from school, never to be seen again. Karma is a shrew. Story 6. We're on our way home from a party at a bar. Some dude was leaving the bar at the same time we were. He pulls out fast and whips in front of us to leave the lot first. Now, we never had any contact with him before this, so we follow behind him calmly, as it seems we're all going to the same on-ramp for the highway. He proceeds to weave in and out of traffic, riding multiple bumpers and speeding like a bat out of hell. This behavior continues for several miles, and people are getting ticked. After a bit of time, the exits are coming up, and he swerves to cut someone off 5 cars ahead of us, then suddenly realized there's an exit coming up that his lane will eventually run into. Cue him trying to cut back over to get into the straight lane to his left. What happens next is glorious. Absolutely nobody lets him get over. Everyone teams up to create a tight wall just to force him to stay in the lane he's currently in. His lane then begins to turn into the exit ramp, and he is furious, beeping, cussing out his window, and giving us all the middle finger as he's forced to take the wrong exit. Taking the wrong exit in LA can be really devastating. Not always. Sometimes it just means you have to drive the side road a little bit. But with all the highways that are there in Los Angeles, sometimes it means you're going in the direction you really don't want to go on. Or you end up on a highway you're trying to avoid because you know there's going to be traffic and gridlock. Story 7. I don't know if this counts as karma, but I found it funny. My boyfriend and I were role-playing on a medieval role-playing group chat, and there was this dude breaking the 4th wall, which was against the rules, and being extremely annoying. My boyfriend was a co-admin, meaning he could ban that dude, but he didn't because he thought it would be power abuse or something. Then the conversation went like, the dude, "I'm just presenting hard facts of how this all makes no sense." Banned. No, he didn't get banned. He just wrote that at the end of the text to annoy us. Me, writing half-comprehensible gibberish out of anger, knowing he could pretend that he got banned. "If you dare leave the chat, I'll slap your butt off." And then he left. And I didn't even know what I was doing and that it would work so well, because I've heard that he didn't come back until almost 1 year later. I still laugh thinking about it to this day, and I try my best to come up with more stuff like that to get an annoying person to leave. Story 8. My dad's story, not mine. Back in the 80s, he was a truck driver and would regularly go through the mountain ranges of North America. For the safety of drivers, they have signs posted for steep inclines, as trucks at this time didn't have the safety features to prevent runaways, particularly dangerous during the winter months. The drivers used these signals to slow down when descending from a mountain so they didn't lose control of their vehicle. Of course, they also used CB radios to communicate this as well as other road hazards. In comes the Radio Rambo. For non-professional drivers, this is a Karen trucker, speeding and taunting other drivers on the road, stating, "A real truck driver can handle this," as he is going way too fast on a decline in the snow. 2 miles later, Snow Tricker Steve loses control of his vehicle and lays his rig over. He decides to use his radio to call for help. The drivers all responded, "A real truck driver can handle it," as they passed him by and went on their merry way.
Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 9. Not entirely karma, but improved on my part. Entering middle school in an upper-class K-12 school from a low-middle-class elementary school made me an outsider. But, for the most part, I was welcomed. Except by one girl named Haley. Haley, for some reason, didn't like me, and whenever we did have to work together, she made me do all the work. As part of the curriculum, all grades at one point have to put on a play. My mom was there for an after-party after 3 nights of performing the play, and she asked who this blonde girl was. Me. Oh, that's Haley. Mom. Is that the one who's been bullying you for no reason? Some of the parents heard that because they turned their heads when my mom said that. Apparently, the next day, Haley goes up to me and asked if she bullied me, and I gave a nutshell description of her actions. After that, she didn't bother me too much, and even offered to help now and then. Yep, sometimes when we think someone is out to get us, it just turns out they're just acting selfishly and they don't really notice what they're doing to you. There's a saying, the axe forgets, the tree remembers. Sometimes it might be painful, but there are times when confrontation can clear some things up. Not like a physical confrontation, just standing up to someone. That's a whole nother story, and I know that involves a lot of feelings. I think there are some times where just standing up, even if it doesn't work, can make all the difference, especially in your attitude. Story 10. When I was in high school, before I had my driver's license, my mom was driving me to dance class one evening. It had been raining right before, and as she pulled up to the curb to let me out, her tire hit a puddle. A man who had been walking with his 2 small children started screaming at my mother, calling her a total shrew because she had just splashed his kids. My mom told me to hurry up and run inside, so I did, because I was running a little bit behind. But through the door of the dance studio a few minutes later, I did see my mom in the lobby talking to someone. Apparently, she decided not to go home immediately for fear the guy would try to follow her, and parked her car and locked her doors to call my dad for backup. Fortunately for her, an off-duty cop had seen the whole thing, and when the guy started pacing around my mom's car, the cop intervened. Guy calmed down real quick. Story 11. The only karma stories I have are ones where someone overtakes you, but then are stuck at the traffic lights. But the first story reminded me when I was in primary school. Don't know what the American equivalent is, but it's just before high school. Anyway, I was in class, and this one boy kept leaning in close to me, bragging about how in love with me he was. I was almost positive he was joking, because this was back when a girl who was chubbier, shall we say, had very little chance of a boyfriend. I was getting more and more annoyed, so I punched him in the jaw. Not too hard, because I didn't actually want to hurt him, more like a warning punch. Nor did I want to get in trouble if the teacher saw me. Luckily, the teacher didn't see, even though she turned around milliseconds after it happened, and the other kids at the table were nice enough to not tell her. The boy got the message after that. Story 12. My brother was talking mad trash about me. I was going through a lot at the time, and my parenting wasn't the best. I cleaned at my parents' house and came across his birth certificate and pocketed it. I was going to toss it out of my car near a homeless camp. Anyway, I had it for a couple days, went out drinking with some friends one night, tried getting food delivered, but my card was acting funny. The next morning, I got a random text about fraudulent activity on my account. Called the number in the text, gave all my info for my account. Later, I looked at an alert on my banking app, notifying that there were texts being sent about fraudulent activity and the messages weren't coming from my bank. Needless to say, I dealt with my bank while nursing a hangover. Hopefully he put the birth certificate back. It sounds like he was confessing to karma biting him. It sounds like he was kind of trying to own up to the mistakes his brother was pointing out. Not to say his brother shouldn't have been this mean in calling him out if it was being kind of abusive. But yeah, if your card is acting funny, always call the official bank number. Never call some random number in a text. It's probably a phishing attempt. Story 13. I was in an amusement park a few years back with my sister. At a pond, we took a break and watched the ducks for a while. There were some cute young ducklings in the grass near us, and we watched them. Then a kid showed up, maybe 5 years old, and tried to grab some of the baby ducks. I told him not to touch them. Looked at me confused. Either he didn't understand my German, or was scared a stranger talked to him and then ran off. Me and my sister then talked a bit, and suddenly we heard a kid scream. We turned around to see the same kid run off again, being chased by a duck. Seems like he went back for the baby ducks, and the mom was there this time. We laughed at that. Story 14. I have a little brother who was an absolute monster at the time of this story. He didn't understand what privacy was, so when I told him to get out of my room because I wanted privacy to clear my head from school, he threw a wooden angel that was a foot tall and 5 inches wide at me, and it hit me in the eye. I got a black eye for that, and my mom scolded him. For weeks later, we were at the grocery store when he slipped and hit his face onto a shelf and got a black eye. I recalled the wooden angel and tried not to laugh and say, "Karma's a jerk, ain't it?" I probably would have gotten smacked if I did. He acts better now, though he still throws his occasional fits. Story 15. I had an ex-toxic BFF who started talking junk about me in a group chat I wasn't in, sharing pictures of me and my mom she found online. I was about to speak to someone, but her other friend, who's also my friend, told me not. So I saved up info for the time to strike, and I did when she took it too far by cutting up one of those cheap Christmas cards I made her in the class after writing slurs on them. "It's Christmas, come on!" I told the whole class and the head of year. 3-hour detention on Saturday and grounded for life. Whole class hated her after that. Karma's a shrew for sure. Story 16. One time I was driving home, and an SUV with a shirtless 50-something man and his wife, obviously high, swerved all over the 6-lane highway, chasing me, a mom in a minivan, and screaming profanities for no reason. Even at the stoplight, they were screaming threats. I saw a cop all the way across the lanes, so I did a U-turn. They did a U-turn, still chasing me. However, when I pull up to the cop, suddenly the man and his wife disappear. The cop let me sit by him for 30 minutes while my nerves calmed. Fortunately, my kids were not in the car. I wouldn't drive on that road for a year or two after that happened. Story 17. When I was very young, I don't remember exactly, my friend and I fell into a predicament. A group of classmates had climbed onto a play net thing above my friend and threatened to jump on him or me if we tried to move. Being confused 5-year-olds, we just stood there, freaking out. Eventually, my friend built up the courage to run away, and 2 kids jumped off of the edges. They hit each other mid-air and both landed on their faces and hands. One lost their front teeth for months, and the other broke their wrist and their forearm, both on their right arm. That was a pretty strange event. Story 18. Okay, I love this channel, full stop. That said, while I understand doing the like and subscribe call midway through, the number of times I've minimized or closed mostly facts vids on pure instinct is both quite funny and a little frustrating. But the upside is I'll see the progress bar when it's recommended again a few vids later and have a pleasant surprise. So yay! Still, the number of vids I've closed or nearly closed, only to realize I was halfway through in just the month or so I've been watching, is enough to make me chuckle. Story 19. What's scary in the last story is that 2 people who are responsible for looking after vulnerable people with mental health issues, one of whom has the overall responsibility for everything that happens in the facility, have that kind of attitude towards mental health issues and are willing to lie, manipulate, and mistreat someone with a mental health issue in order to get them locked away when they weren't even exhibiting symptoms. It brings up the question of how they treated the people in the facility who probably were struggling and exhibiting symptoms much more than the employees. Story 20. I had a coworker who mocked my hearing loss. I'm generally fine, but when I miss some words, I asked people to repeat themselves, and he repeatedly called me deaf and laughed at my condition. Then, a few years later, he had a son who was totally deaf. I saw his wife's Facebook post asking for donations for a surgery for the boy. I never wished ill upon anyone, but I'm sure he's worried that some jerkwad will mock his son for his disability in the future. Story 21. Here's another moment of karma. I was attending my uncle's funeral. He'd been in the Navy during Vietnam. Well, because of this, there was a large police presence to block traffic. All of a sudden, This guy in a sports car jumps into the procession right behind me and my dad. The cop at the stoplight we were at turned blood red and furiously pointed at him and whipped his hand to point to the shoulder. He was still sitting there with another cop an hour later. Story 22. The girl who tried to bully me for my visual disability got bullied for her illness literally the next day. She stormed out of the class crying. I wasn't there, but apparently they were mean as hell and made her feel the exact same way she made me feel. She's left me alone since, and the best part is, I didn't have to stoop to her level to get even. Karma just gave me some poetic justice.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.